sisters and brothers in Dhamma, and thank you very much for being patient today. It is lucky that I did not think it is the British time. It would have been worse. But anyway, once this happened to me once also in January 2000, I was teaching at McGill University in Montreal, and I was jet lagged. I was the visiting professor there, and then I was in my room and I thought, oh, I will take a few minutes rest. Apparently, I slept over 1 hour and went to the classroom. Still, students were waiting very patiently, about 30-odd students. They were very nicely seated and they were waiting for me. And I was amazed, and so I gave the lecture, scheduled about 45 minutes or so late, because usually go about 1.5 hours. But the students were amazing. I mean, they were, I haven't taught many places, but those students were really remarkable. I mean, they were very patient and supportive and still standing in the classroom. And they knew that I will come. Anyway, that's the story. So, thank you very much. Thank you very much for Mr. Leslie Jayawardena for letting you down for 30 minutes. And thank you for Mr. Leslie Jayawardena, the president, and all the members of the Sasana Abhivardhana Society, who has made possible our visit. And today going to be the last one also, our chief monk, Venerable Datuk Dhammaratana, who kindly facilitating our stay here. And also all the members of this community, monks and other people who support us, who feed us, who take care of us and make it a very comfortable, auspicious place to be on the planet. Not an exaggeration. Truly, I mean it. And also it's nice to have an English platform to speak. Suppose that if there was no English platform here, I am jobless when I come to Malaysia. Unemployed. Or unemployable. Yeah? So this is very nice. And today is my third talk. Yeah, come in. Yeah. So you're not late, just come in. But anyway, it was good that because I was late, other people had the opportunity to come late too. So which is very nice. So anyway, we are not late, so that's fine, thank you. So today, the topic is Economy and Empowerment, Kutadanta Sutta. And I'm going to talk about this today, and it's the third in the series, Buddhist Social and Political Philosophy. Is anybody here who have not come to earlier two? Only 2 people. Okay, 3 people. Okay, but you will not miss anything. But if you miss anything, if I note your hand, I will stop and answer any questions, yeah? And if you want any clarification, please feel free to raise your hand. It will be fine. Yeah, so I will not get offended. And so in this Dhamma talk series, we have aimed to understand the value and relevance of 3 Buddhist discourses. And now these 3 Buddhist discourses, they are related to Digha Nikaya, and they discuss about how the Buddhist society and the political system should be organized, drawing inspiration from Buddhism. Or, in other words, what were the Buddha's ideas? Was the Buddha not concerned about the mundane things, or political affairs? Because you see, when you listen to the Buddha or read the Tripitaka, Buddha always meet important people, ministers, kings, and advisors to the Buddhas and so on. So Buddha would have a way to relate to them, say that otherwise Buddha will be unemployed too. Yeah? Buddha will be unemployed too. So Buddha has to find a niche somewhere that he can address. So there are a lot of things that Buddha thought that Buddhist vision should inspire the economy. A lot of people think that money and the economy is unimportant. That's maybe true for Buddhist monks and the nuns. But for lay people, money and the wealth is very important part of it. Because without wealth, Buddhist institutions cannot sustain, because even in the Buddha's time it was the case, because we know the story about Anathapindika. Anathapindika was the Buddha's greatest patron. And he's the one who lavishly devoted all his wealth for the cause of Buddhism. So now it's a good example. So the economy, material health, the economy is very important, is significant, and we should not ignore it. So that we could see ideas Buddha always give for lay people, that you have to organize your life righteously, fairly, and in an honest way. And that help you to develop. So it's very interesting to kind of pay attention to the Buddha's ideas of material things. Material things are the foundation. So here, particularly, my interest today is to focus on economy. What the Buddha, what suggestions we can learn from the Buddha, and related to broader political philosophy in the West, I draw attention to Marxism. The Marxism is the Karl Marx philosophy that as everything is material. Material things are the production and industries and where you make wealth. Capital is very important. So I call it materiality. So basically, what Buddha says about materiality, and we examine, the social and political aspects related to it. And if people want to look it up later on, the discourse, D means Digha Nikaya, that's in the original reference. But if you want to have an English translation, it's called Dialogues of the Buddha. Dialogues of the Buddha, Volume 1. And here, what we find is Buddha's guidance on material wealth, kind of not only spiritual, but Buddha recognized that we all need food, we need clothes, we need dwelling place, and we need safety and health and good relationships, and these are very foundational for Buddhist practice, and we cannot ignore them. And if we ignore them, that means your practice get affected. You may not be able to see. Even today, I'm not saying a class statement. If you look at the world, especially Western world, if you ask who practice Buddhism, usually people who practice Buddhism are wealthy people, middle class or upper middle class. Very few working class people. This same true even in Buddhist countries, because working class people always have a lot of other things to do, because they have to be worried about how they get food to the table, and they don't have time to go to the temple or do meditation and so on. So the people who are middle class or upper class people or wealthy people, they already have material, they are accumulated wealth, so they can make time. They can make time to go for retreat. They can make time to go to expensive courses. They can travel abroad for meditation retreats and so on. Yeah, you see? So this is very foundational for a good living, and I think we should not ignore it, because the material wealth enable spiritual wealth. It depends on. So it's very important. So the Buddha always had suggestions that how, as a lay devotee, have a manageable lifestyle. Yeah? Okay? I'm slow moving, but I think I will get to the point. So, the important point is the second line, planning. We always think about socialist government, Russia, and so on. Of course, China is not exactly now, but earlier. The planning economy is a very important part of socialist economies. But even in other countries, any government have a budget. Every year you have to have the approval budget, So you allocate money for each thing that you have to do. You have to allocate money. And then only after they were approved by the parliament, you are able to spend. And you cannot spend more than what you have. So the planning ahead is very important. And now here, Buddha has very important idea how to plan an economy. What is essential. It may not be completely comprehensive, but there are basics that you should have a plan. So these also come to the idea that should we completely neglect the future? I think we should have future in mind. At least we should not attach to the future, but definitely we should have a little preparation for the future. You should not let it just fall the future on you, but you should have a little bit. You should make some effort to make the future bright. Making effort is very important. So the planning comes with the effort. Put in your energy to make things better. So the change is possible when you plan. When you plan, change is possible. So the planning of the economy is an important part of this discourse. So the economy and the planning and empowerment, those are the three things that I am going to discuss today. Yeah? Okay? Those are the basic ideas. So now, its analysis is unique in the sense because Buddha directly talked about what the economy is and what should be done to the economy. And also, Buddha correct other people's own ideas. Sometimes, see, government prepared policies, but, unskilled and not tested out, well thought out advisors give own advice to government. We can draw examples from many countries, and then it fails. So here, Buddha try to give a very good advice to people how to organize the economy. And now here, earlier, we talked about in the first lecture, Agganya Sutta, and we focused on the caste. And the last week, we talked about Chakkavatisi and other, focus on poverty. They are also related to what we talked today. Class system and the poverty. Poverty is the suffering. And there are two important social problems even today. And today we are moving from that to the economic production, how the production should be empowered in the country. So all three, you could take it actually concerned about materiality, rather than the spiritual. There's very little about meditation, or of course morality is there, the discipline is there, but less on talk about nirvana. It's not obvious, but of course if you do this framework, then it will lead to nirvana. The path is there. So you could call it, this is the middle path in some ways. Kind of the middle path in organizing your lay life, even though the word is not found there. Yeah? So So here, I already mentioned about this, the sutta. So the Kutadanta Sutta mentioned to economy, and then so here what is interesting is that this discourse mention an effective solution. You cannot just. The story goes there that by praying alone or making sacrifice, important thing in ancient India, when there's a problem, you thought that making happy the gods, kind of sacrificing, fire sacrifice and so on, you could make things better. And there's a strong criticism here, like in the previous ones, turning upside down things. And here clearly says, this is not a time for festivals. This is not a time for feast. And this is not time to have carnivals, because people are suffering and you have to have action plan, a real action plan to address the poverty. So this is quite, in that way, is very, kind of direct, taking people to the right path. And here I call it wise counseling. The advisor provide kind of correction. Quite interesting. Now, content, you will be clear. This little bit, I will tell you a little bit what the context is. So here in the first one, you can see Buddha was on a journey. This is also important to remember. Buddha very rarely stayed in one place. Very rarely. And from the very early on, for many, many years, they were always traveling. And then, after a few years, I heard 20 years, then he had the rain retreat. The people say, people criticize, no, these students of the Buddha, they travel, they don't pay much attention to the weather like this, and they are not practicing ahimsa. They are tramping on the step, standing and walking over ants and the worms and so on. A lot of criticism. So Buddha says, there is a point. So he says, monks, stay in one place. Ask someone to prepare a place for you. Stay there and do the practice there. So it's called Vassa, rain retreat. And that's the beginning of Buddhist monasticism. So, but even then, Buddha did not stop being in one place. So it's called, he was going through the Magadha, and then the rumor travels that, the Shakyamuni Buddha, he has arrived here. People are, kind of going in like bees, kind of large collections drawing to the city. So the Buddha was in Ambalatika, pleasure, number 2, and householders and Brahmins were traveling. And then the king was there on the roof, or not the king, the advisor, he was there. He noted large crowds. He noted large crowds, and that's number 2, going to the Buddha's place. And they thought that, Gautama understands successful performance of a sacrifice. So that he wanted to have, he intended to do a sacrifice, and he thought that, I should go and ask the Buddha. Buddha knows very well how to do a sacrifice. Let's go and ask. So this idea occurs in the point 4 in the sutta. And then, this is the area, number 5, Kanumata, is the kind of the localities like Selangor, this area. So the Brahmins at Sanungata attempted to avoid that Kutadanta visiting the Buddha. But however, Kutadanta decided to go to the Buddha. And now also you will see, in relation to Aggañña Sutta and others, you see that the spokespersons are here Brahmins, the highest caste. And then also you see that number 5, as you see, the opposition, the advisors and so on, they also wanted to protect the king, kind of perversion or distortion or depriving not get the right advice. This is what happened to political leaders. Political leaders, once they come to power, they lose touch because the advisors prevent them seeing the reality. And here also a similar case that they wanted to prevent going to the Buddha, because if they go to the Buddha, they get the right advice, but they don't want to do it. Because you see these bureaucrats, the advisors, they have their own plan of agendas. Yeah, see, that's why they ruin the political leaders. Because imagine a political leader doesn't have time to pay attention to little minor details, and the people around them screw them up further, and that's why the countries get damaged. Of course, there are many examples. I will not draw it because with the Buddhist Maha Vihara, we don't want to be political and kind of draw attention. So, but we know what he means. And also, it's a criticism of this patriarchy, hegemony. Brahmins want to control, so they don't want to provide the right information. That's very clearly here. So here, the sixth point, he goes. Kutadanta goes to the Buddha and says, "Oh, Venerable Sir, I wanted to have a sacrifice. Why? For my own benefit, for my kingdom." And then he asked the advice, how to do sacrifice. People know what sacrifice is? Very foundational Indian religions, especially in the pre-Buddhist religion, Brahmanic religion, sacrifice is the central one. So here, various forms of sacrifice, but first one important one is fire sacrifice. And usually you kill a lot of animals and things like that. It's really a feast. The fruits and the vegetables and even sometimes horses. It's called ashwamedha. That means horse sacrifice. It's questionable whether humans were sacrificed. I'm not sure, but sometimes it may have occurred too. But definitely horses, animals and so on. So that's what sacrifice is. So basically the idea is that when you burn these animals and so on, the smoke produced, it goes up and it pleases the gods. So Agni Devata, kind of the Agni means fire, Devata means Agni Deva means fire god. That's why fire sacrifice, it's very, very popular, fire sacrifice. Yeah. So sacrifice is the way to connecting with the God, making a link with the God, having a link and blessing. Yeah. So now here the Buddha actually challenged that also. Buddha says sacrifice is actually feeding monks. So the Buddha says that you don't have to kill any animal, but you can give some meals to the monks. So he said dana. Dana comes as a kind of alternative, change the sacrifice into dana. Yeah? So I get a little bit detailed because I may not be able to tell earlier, but for the Brahmanic religion, Vedic religion, and all the texts that we mentioned, like Rig Veda, remember Purusha Sukta we had earlier, we discussed in the first lecture, that's a hymn, but it's in Rig Veda, but they are usually used for sacrifices and so the prayers. And now, fascinating thing about early religion, Hinduism, Veda and so on, they are very organized. Everything has to be done neatly. Even here, in this temple next door, sometimes you have the chant and you see this pronunciation is kind of like this. It's kind of, it's a tough training. You have to train about 10, 12 years to get it right intonations. And so the shabda, the words that come from your mouth is very important. So the chanting and the fire, they all go together. So that's the way to reach the God and so on. So this is the traditional religion, but Buddha used paritta is the kind of substitution for the Vedic chanting. Rather than chanting the Vedas and so on, the paritta becomes in Buddha. So you see, it's quite fascinating to see the early, what became later Hindu or Brahmanic religion and the Buddhism, you see a lot of adoption and adaptation and change. Yeah? So it's quite interesting. So here, on the seventh, I'm still going on the sutra, the content. On the right hand are the chapters in, if you look at the chair, and on the left is my numbering, yeah? So now here, number 7, called Kin Wide Realm. Now, these are written various ways. The translation I use, it's an older one, so that's how it's called Maha Vihara. Really, the kin's name is Maha Vihara. That means that the name also interesting. Maha means great. Vijita means like somebody who has conquered the land. It's like more like an emperor. Yeah. So when people get power, when they become rulers, then they acquire a lot of land. They have a kind of general feeling with them. I want to celebrate it. This is a natural thing. So the Mahavijitavi also, he had a lot of land, he's successful. He thought that this is time to have the festival. But his advisor sees that it's not the right time. Yeah, he says that Kin Wide Realm alone in meditation, so he's having a restful time, and his thought comes, it's a short time. I have in abundance all. Well, if I were to offer a great sacrifice, so it's basically saying, I'm well off, I have everything. Now what I want to do is I wanted to become a celebrity. How you become a celebrity? You become a person loved by the gods, because you need the blessings of the god in order to maintain your luxurious life. Yeah? People get the message? Yeah? So these are kind of the background, yeah? And then, next point, the very wise Brahmin as an advisor. Brahman chaplain says, this is his advice. The king's country is harassed and harried. These are all English, of course. It's all English, I use it the same way. Basically saying your country is in chaos. Yeah? And there are thieves and people are, of course he didn't use the word drug addicts, but prostitutes and the people who steal things and people don't have food and so on. So your country is bad. And the dacoits abroad who pillage the villages, following, and it's like that. He gives an explanation. Your social condition is very bad. Political condition is very bad. There are so many problems. Now it's not the time to do a carnival. Yeah? It's not time for sacrifice. We say, and then he advised, kind of following each his business, harass in the realm no more. So what you have to do is, you have to eliminate this social crisis. So once you eliminate the social crisis, maybe you can have a sacrifice. So that's his advice. Yeah? So he basically postponed having sacrifice. And then the kin wide room, kind of cold chaplain, this order is at hand, I want to offer that great sacrifice. Kind of, kin is always adamant about it, the rulers. They are always addicted to their power and sometimes they don't want to listen. The idea is that he's very eager to do the sacrifice. And the 10th point, and then he advised that the king should send invitations. And now think about what this is. Now this is actually what happened is this is after economies now got better. It's like number 9. They had this economic plan, adopted it, and country became successful, and the stealing disappeared. People became successful. So now is a fit time for sacrifice. On then 10th, say. Now it's a time for you to do a sacrifice. And then he invite participation. Send invitation, ask people to come. Let His Majesty the King celebrate the sacrifice. And so invite the other people. And then there are a lot of discussion because number 11 and so on, little bit not relevant for us. It's kind of distraction, but basically Vaidyan gifted in 8 ways, and then chaplain gifted in 4 ways. These are the ways of qualities they should have. It shouldn't bother us. And then 3 modes of giving sacrifice and so on, it discusses it. Number 11 to 13, kind of little bit distractive details for us. But number 9, 8, 9, and 10 are relevant. Kind of the 8 presents the condition, real condition, and then 9 represents the active plan on the economy, and the 10th is the country is successful and how to do the sacrifice. Those are the 3. If you read it, you want to read these 11, 12, and those 2 points in the sutta. Yeah, those are the very important ones. So then talk about other things, 10 ways and so on, 16 ways, and a lot of things. I found them a little bit distractive, but you may not find it. And then 16, here is very important. Even though sacrifice was held, no animal was slain. No oxes were slain. Because the oxes were the more common animals sacrificed. Yeah. And then number 17, Brahmin taking wealth with them. And now what happened is that letters were sent to everybody. So here basically idea is that you should not do any festival alone. You should not do sacrifice or kin alone, but you should ask other people to participate. It's like anumodana. In like our situation, you should ask a party. Now, here the interesting situation happened because the economy is successful, people are wealthy, and when people received an invitation, they brought a lot of wealth with them and say, "Oh Majesty, we also would like to contribute. We would like to take a part." And then Kean says, when they ask him, Kean says that, "I don't want to really accept. I have enough." So Kean refuse the other people's donation, he does it, and then these people go to various places, they do another festival. That means entire country is celebrating the festival, so everybody participate, rejoice it. So that's what it is, yeah? And then number 18, it talks about 8 personal gifts, yeah? And so this is kind of the basic idea of this thing. I think some parts is related with Indian ideas of sacrifice, but most important thing is for us to economy. And let's go to these things. Yeah, we basically talk about briefly that Buddha was in Magadha, he was traveling, he was in Ambalatika presence, and then people heard that he's there. So a lot of crowds were going there. So Kutadanta himself witnessed it, and he wanted to go to the Buddha and ask his advice, and that was the context. And then we see that he was avoided, but he was successful to reach into the Buddha. So that's the context, yeah? So the background is how to perform a sacrifice. So that's the major theme, how to perform a sacrifice, and Buddha provide an alternative one, yeah? And now, so this is a mistake. So economic plan, yeah? That's the one we want to discuss. So that's the reference for the dialogue of Buddha. This is the how to write the king's name, Mahavijitavi, and a proposal to hold a sacrifice, and Brahmin advised advocate to implement an effective economic plan to overcome social problems, crisis in the country, and now economic plans, even though we tend to think they are new, but this sutta is a good testimony that it is not new. Idea of planning economy is not new. Buddha's time, Buddha himself has proposed one. It may not be comprehensive, but basic things are there. And in this plan, essential thing is that many factors are considered. Importance of the ruler is considered, and also importance of the state is considered. So for the economy, these things are very important. The person who rule and the state is very important. Yeah, and also, I mean, we think today this idea of investment is a new thing. It's not the case. Investment has been there even in earlier times. Yeah, so the production occurs when there's investment, and even in the Buddhist time. I mean, in those times, probably it was simple. Like if you have 100 cows, you buy 200 cows, like that. Yeah, and if you have 10 workers, you employ 20 workers, like that. Yeah, simple way. Of course, not in great extent. And now then, important part of here, so I mentioned about the ruler and the state, but investment, but also important people who work hard. So in this plan, ideas say that you have to identify people who want to work hard, because not people who are lazy. See, this is very important one. So why? Because only the people who work hard can produce, not the lazy people. So the plan says that people who are eager, who are desired to produce, they should be empowered. So that's what it tried to say. Yeah. So, and then it also mentioned about fair distribution of resources. You know, kind of people to have access to the resources, and also people can benefit from the situation, and that's also highlighted. So, and then in the economic plan, you know, kind of in the Marxist system, they always talk about only material side, but in this Buddhist one, you want to secure both economic side and moral or mental development, both. Now here, on the very title, this word, volition, I don't know whether you know this word. Volition means wish. Yeah, and this is very important word. You know, it's like a bodhicitta, you know, because here the important thing is it goes back to Buddhist idea of mind, again in the sutta, even though it's not explicit, that you have to identify people who have volition or right volition. Or earlier I mentioned people who are not lazy. You know, people who wanted to do the work. And it is recognized, and it's a crucial one there. And they are the ones that, you know, the economic plan try to use it. So I'm not sure, but maybe we will hear from the audience, but I suspect this one in the Kutadanta is the first economic plan in Indian history, I think. I'm not sure, but if I'm wrong, you can correct me. But I think the Buddha's advice here is the earliest economic plan that we hear in the Indian history. And also, importance is, what we can learn about this is that is emphasis on agriculture. And now it fits into Buddha's time. But even today, when you travel in India, like if you go to Vulture Peak, and especially the places where the story says that Buddha has these ascetic practices. I forgot the name, but you have to climb up the mountain with a lot of beggars on the road. And if you look at the below, they are all paddy fields. You know, when you go by bus or coach in India, you see many, many paddy fields. So the economy that we focus on this sutta is an agricultural economy, not industrial economy. Of course, industry is basically using tools. They are using some of the tools like cows and the plows and so on, but it's not really in the sense that we talk about American development, you know, or Chinese development, Russian development with industry machines and so on. But it's focused on agriculture. So here it says that you have to identify the agriculture as important, and you have to, who would like to work in agriculture, you have to empower them. So it basically says if you want to eliminate poverty, you have to produce, you have to develop the production, especially rice, rice production, vegetable production, and the fruits. And that's the focus on the thing here. And now, if we adopt this model to modern times, and we can make some observations. And the crucial role here, the change happens from the top, not from the bottom. Bottom is already unrecoverable because the scale has gone down to it's almost flat. So the people, change in the people from the bottom is very little, but the change should come implement from the top. So the state's capacity in empowering public. So the top, the rulers should have the capacity to change. So basically the plan, now here A, B, C, D, E, kind of identify this plan. The first plan is the royal treasury grant grain and fodder to cultivate land and farming and raise animals. Yeah, so it's kind of agricultural economy. So people, if you ask people, general people, now is a difficult time, empower yourself, they cannot empower because they don't have resources, because they may have one tool and maybe not even one cow, they may not have a fertilizer, they may not have grains, and they cannot do it. So here the role is that the investment come from the government, state. State must give some capital. So this is actually not exactly what Marx says, but comes very close, because sharing the capital. Sharing the capital, the materialism, communist ideas say that the problem is basically people not having access to capital, and so that there should be a way that poor people have access to capital. And here, basically access to capital, the royal treasury should give necessary capital to the people to do the agriculture. That's the first one. And so the granted capital to traders and businesses. So for the farmers, but also the business people to use carts and hire porters and distribute the goods to various places and so on. That's important. Also the trading part, and then kind of investment also should take place in the same place. When you do that, you don't want to waste all your resources. You want to keep little bit for emergencies. So investment is very important, and the creation of new jobs are important. And most importantly, it goes to very much for Marx here. Karl Marx says that the problem with the capitalism is that few people who have access to capital, they get all the benefits, all the profits. And that profits do not go to the working classes, the laborers, and so on. So the Marx theory is basically you have to divide these classes, and so the working people also should have the capital. And Buddha says the same thing, the fair wages. We talked about inequality, like for example in Western countries in particular, now we talked about salary gaps and so on. Should there be a salary gap between men and women, for example? And usually even at executive level, even for executive level, there seems to be significant salary gaps. Even in Hollywood, if you're a female actor, you earn less than a male actor, for example. And female actors probably tend to accept whatever they offered, whereas the male actors will demand more and negotiate more, and they will use tools to get more. Things like that. So the inequality in wages is a very important one. And inequality in wages means that some certain segments of the society do not have enough money. Last time I mentioned the word purchasing power. That's the economics term in economics that say that if this purchasing power is weaker, then there is an economic collapse. Kind of you go to recession. Yeah. So what you want to see is that you want to see people unlock their purses and they go to shops all the time, they go to restaurants and they go on traveling, and these are the things that get more money to the government and so on. Yeah. So the wages is an important one. If you don't have the wages, you cannot do it. So the wage is emphasized there. Workers need to be paid properly. Sigalo Sutta also talks about it. So here, can we think Buddha neglected materiality? No. Very clearly stated, very clear terms, materiality is as important one. And then, not only that, yeah. 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 Yes. Huh? It's not inferred, but it's explicit, yeah. This actually I taken from the translation, and all these words like say giving grain is mentioned, and also like for example wages mentioned. Yeah. Huh? Capital. This is a new word. There's a kind of modern economic term, capital. But they mentioned about giving funds from basically saying providing things. The treasury should provide grain. See, the grain is basically capital. So the treasury should provide cows and things like that. Yeah. So that's what mean capital. Yeah. Capital means resources that you can use in the production process, or you can use it for purchase or investment. Yeah. So these are not my word is kind of using. And then it talks about efficiency in the government service and mention about the government service. And it also says that you should provide proper salaries for them. See, now one of the problems in many countries is not lack of resources, but inefficiency in the government, corruption. Like, for example, some countries that the bureaucrats take bribes, and we call it corruption. Yeah, and then is not the only reason, but one of the reasons is some of these officers need quick money, because some of these officers want to send their children to the US for university education. And now think about, of course, I'm not taking Malaysian example, but how much it costs to send a child to Harvard University, for example. Even for American person is difficult. Like when the tuition alone for 4 years, more than $200,000 to study in Harvard. And on the top of that, you need about another 100,000 or so for keep up or living expenses. I mean, imagine 300,000. Even for American parent is hard, but imagine how many people go from the Asia and the Middle East and Africa to study at Harvard. And where do they get that money? Yeah, you can see the reasons, how people acquire them. So people start bribing and corruption, and we talk about it, and it's there. It says that efficiency is very important. So the government service should be very efficient, and you should prevent bribery and corruption and encourage. So this is very, all of these are important, but this all relies on the state. State is the one who want to implement it. Poor people cannot, or bureaucrats cannot, or traders cannot, or people who do the production cannot. State should have the rules and produce it. Yeah, it's very, very important, insightful. And then this is a little bit about, I already mentioned about this Kean's wish. The Kean wanted to have, Kutadanta wanted to have a sacrifice. This is what I have in abundance all the good things a mortal can enjoy. The whole wide circle of earth is mine by the conquest to possess. And then a very difficult English word. well, if I were to offer a great sacrifice, that should ensure me weal and welfare for many days. So this is actually the weal and the welfare is the wish of any autocrat, dictator, any politician, and so on. That's why politicians forget always other people, because once they achieve it, they start enhancing their own life rather than thinking about people. Yeah? And then he said, this is, I wanted to instruct you to have sacrifice, yeah? So this is the kind of, I already mentioned about this, the situation that mentioned that the situation that there are thieves, were the king so long as that is so, this, and I am in the 6th line, so long as that is so, to levy a fresh tax, verily His Majesty would be acting wrongly. Basically say, now you want to do a sacrifice, people are suffering, and if you add more taxes to do your sacrifice, it's wrong. Basically the advisor says. But perchance His Majesty might think, I will soon put a stop to these scoundrels' game by degradation and banishment and fines and bonds and death. And now this is the kind of the traditional way of governance, kind of traditional way of handling the social problems, because the state always thinks if there is thieves, you can easily kick them out. You can kill them, banish them, put in the prison, problem can be solved, yeah? So that's actually, because they kind of say that, he says that actually you can do that, it's on your way, but it's the wrong way to do it. This is not the way to act. But their license cannot be satisfied, put a stop to so. The remnant left unpunished would still go on harassing the realms. Now, we learned this situation in Chakravarti Sutta last time. Yeah? Basically says, the traditional method of governance and controlling social problems is unacceptable. It doesn't work in this situation. You have to find a new solution to the problem. Yeah? So, and now here, now Mr. Leslie's question, you can see those the 6 points, 5 points. I got it from here. See, now this is the plan. Now there is one method to adopt to put a thorough end to this disorder. So the solution he suggests, whosoever there be in the king's realm, who devote themselves to keeping cattle and farm, see, agriculture, yeah, cattle and farm, to them let His Majesty the King give food and seed corn, providing capital. So the people who are doing agriculture and the farming, they should be provide the basic required things to start the thing, yeah. So the agriculture is taken care. Whosoever there be in the king's realm, who devote themselves to trade, to them let His Majesty the King give capital. They are directly there. See, they should be financed. The traders should be financed, yeah? Whosoever there be in the king's realm, who devote themselves to government service, to them let His Majesty the King give wages and food. So the government service, if you want to run, you have to provide necessary, they have to be paid wages and other accommodation and all sorts of things. Then those men following each his own business, now this is kind of the hypothesis, yeah? You know, those groups who got into agriculture, who did the trades and who did the service, then those men following each his own business will no longer harass the realm. So they will not be a nuisance to the government. They will not steal. The king's revenue will go up because they have money, they will spend. They have more higher increase in purchasing power. The country will be quiet and at peace. And the populace, pleased one with another and happy, dancing their children in their arms, will dwell with open doors. Here, open doors means security. You don't have to be suspicious, the person who appears on your door, and you don't have to lock it because nobody takes away. Yeah? So country become peaceful. So here the whole solution is there, kind of suggested various stages. I mean, I don't think it can be clearer than this. We are talking about 2,500 years ago, and the Buddha's message cannot be clearer, because you see that it includes the ideas of capitalism also, but also socialism, both. And I think there may be word also used in the word that, I think see, who devote themselves to keeping cattle and farm. That means kind of they considered the people's wish. See, no point invest in people who do not have a desire to use that capital. That's the waste, I think. Because we should give money to people who want to work, not people who do not want to work. So that's the key point, yeah? So we call volition. So the successful business depend on people who wanted to be a part of the production process, in economic process. It says that what happened later on. Now with this last line, we saw it earlier, the populace pleased with one another and happy, and then this is what happened is that people will go, they will have a carefree life, they will go for strolls, the children will be hanging in their hands and they will ask ice creams and toys and wander around and go for swimming and all sorts of things, yeah? So these kind of characterize that happy time has arrived, yeah? Their arms dwelt in open doors, so it's kind of secure. So then after that, the country is successful, and this is how sacrifice should be organized. So advise, send the invitations. There may be many people in your realm who would like to, and also very inclusive. Say there should be sastriyas and vessels of his, and villages and towns and all ministers and officials and remote areas, Brahmins of position, and householders, everybody's invited. So it's inclusive festival. So nobody is discriminated. Yeah? And this is the invitation that it was sent. So I don't know what I wrote for conclusion, but maybe I will wait to I'll have conclusion, but I will go for conclusion after your questions. Because what I proposed, this Kutadanta Sutta is perhaps to my knowledge, the first economic plan in Indian history. So it has a historical value in terms of planning an economy. So also it is valuable when we think about capitalism and socialism, because we tend to think that socialism is there, capitalism is there. Actually, in real fact, this try to bring those together in a kind of, like capitalism, for example, important ingredient is taking the people's wish, volition. People like to have freedom, they want to invest, and people who want to make money, they can work. America is a good example. Business people can carry out their businesses with less interference, yeah? So can you imagine people like Elon Musk and others, how could they become so rich so quickly in a day? Because of this capitalist environment, kind of encouraging people to. So that idea that investing in the people who are eager to do is taken care of. It's a part of capitalism. And then other part is that state giving things to people is socialism. Kind of providing treasury from the capital. It's also there. So it's not a kind of clear cut this or that, but a mixture of both, kind of assisting the state for the people who do not have it, and then using people's desire to do things. I mean, can you imagine, you have one single child, and all your eyes, 4 eyes are on that child, and you want to send that child to Harvard to study, and you sell your property, houses, and you invest all that money and put that child to send Harvard. But the child wanted to play here and play music on the street. He's not interested in a higher degree. Yeah? So these are real stories, and so that means that child is not really interested in education, and you put a lot of resources in it, but he screws things up. He gets messed up because he doesn't want to do whatever he wants to do. He want to be a graffiti artist. Yeah, not bad. You can make a living. You can be a good creative one. I'm not saying it's bad, but that's what that person wants. Is not want to read 4 books a week. Harvard education requires at least, you read at least 1 book for 1 course during a week, and it's not something that you want to do. So that means it will be quite suicidal for those young people to put our wishes on them and screw them up in their search. Yeah. So here, volition is taken as very important. It's not a criticism, my observation. Yeah. Okay. Question.
Bhante, I think the Chinese authority will be very happy to listen to this Kutadanta Sutta, because there is a debate going on between the China and the United States. Which one is better? Is it state capitalism or the the private capitalism? As especially Adam Smith, the kind of maybe government don't play much role in you just leave it to the people, and the people will take care, and the rich people will take care of the poor people. That kind of a private capitalism, the kind of idea in the Western society. But China came out with a state capitalism. So what do you think? Do you think this is what the Buddha trying to say? Is the state capitalism is better than the private capitalism?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Thank you. See these words, when we use the word better or the best, they are relative terms, because when we look from one point, actually the point is me. I from here look at that one, oh, that's better than mine. Oh, that one is worse than mine. It's kind of relative term. So I wouldn't say that the American capitalism or state capitalism in China worse or better. I would say they have strength. Each system has strength. And when you live in America, you see how much freedom you have. Kind of how much, as long as you have money, as long as you have capital with you, you have a lot of freedom in the United States. And now, when I go to China, I also see that how beautiful it is. Kind of number of millionaires, maybe quite high in China now, and it has developed so fast. And if you go I went from Shanghai all the way down towards quite far, and then went to Beijing and so on. Some, I think, in that area, for more than 300 miles or more, when you go on and on by the coach, very superb roads and very wide pavements with flowers and shopping malls, and the young boys and girls, kind of strolling all the way. Wherever you go, you see this idea that what you say in here, the people are carrying their children and kind of like that. You see, China has achieved a lot within a short time. I wouldn't say China is very bad or anything, but you have to empower the people. I think maybe in the Chinese way is fine for China, and I wouldn't say it's bad. But maybe American way is also better for America. I think maybe we have to choose which one we want to live with, But I wouldn't say it's a bad one, because maybe it's a little bit more control in the Chinese case, which I would not like. Of course, I would like to see that happy side, but not the negative side. Yeah. So I would say, China has done a miracle. Miracle because within a short time, the amount of vegetables the food that you available on the street, like eggplant and I forgot we call it the vegetable, very, very, very big. I forgot in Sinhala name also. They're very, very good for your body. A lot of vegetables everywhere. Very fresh vegetables in China, wherever you go. And the vegetarian dishes are very cheap. The food is very cheap and very readily available. So people are not in hunger. There may be some poor people, but in general, it's a remarkable achievement within a short time. So, if we give priority to living the people, if you have a mission of, say, people, everybody should have something to eat, everybody have some place to live, everybody should have some education and so on. I think the Chinese model is a very good one.
Yeah, I have two observations. One is on the socialism and capitalism issue, with which I agree with you. And the other is on the Brahmanism, Buddhism.
Yeah.
And I think the two are related in some sense because in 8 years ago, I gave a talk in Shanghai on China-US relations from a civilizational perspective. So in that context, I actually referred to China as state capitalism, And my host, who is a very well-known, famous professor there, so he wanted to correct me. He said, no, despite what you see as state capitalism, China is still a socialist country, which believes in the distribution, fair, equitable distribution of wealth, and that is the role of the Communist Party. And so they have not gone the way of Russia. Russia abandoned capitalism, and then you had all the oligarchs and super capitalism, private capitalism. China didn't go that way, and it seems to me that, in some sense, the Communist Party is playing the role of the ancient Mandarins or of the Brahmins or of the Sangha in a sense. And here, it looks like very exaggerated what I'm saying, comparing the Communist Party to the Sangha, but considering your sympathies to Marx, it seems to me the biggest, and you said in the Buddhist context, there is both materiality and morals. And I think what Marx seems to have neglected is the moral and spiritual dimension, because in Russia they had communism, but it collapsed. Why? Because the Communist Party itself became corrupt. Unlike the Sangha, you have some internal discipline. They didn't have that. And even China, within the Communist Party, you have the problem of bribery, and they even have to shoot people for bribery. So I think your idea of capitalism and socialism combined, I think that's what China represents. And I live in the US, I have a negative view of American private capitalism. The other point, if I may just quickly say, because it's very interesting in the context of this sutta, you spoke how the Buddha is criticizing the Brahminical the sacrifice at the center, and then we get taking things and adapting and borrowing and changing, etc. Yet when you look at the concluding part, it's very interesting. The king is still performing a sacrifice, but it is not entirely like the ancient sacrifice. It is like a sacrifice very influenced by Buddhist values and ideas. And if you look at India historically, many of the kings were both supporting the Sangha and the Brahmins. You see here, it's also constant reference to Brahmins. Yeah. So they were supporting the Sangha and the Brahmins and also performing sacrifices. And some of the kings at the end, they abdicate the throne and they join the Sangha and they become monks. Many examples in India and in Nepal. So, in a sense, there's a kind of a combined mixed system with the Brahminical and the Buddhist, outlook in the economy. Thank you. I'm sorry I took.
No, thank you. It's not a question, no? It's an observation. It's a very valuable observation, and I think this Brahmanic contingency is a very important one, I think, in the Buddhist text. And I think, I don't think people have stated very clearly the presence of Brahmins within the system. I think itself legitimized Buddhism. Because these Brahmins, as we heard earlier, they were accused in Agganya Sutta, that you left and so on. But a lot of Brahmins come in and stay with Buddha disciples, kind of say that, oh, this is the superior path, because a lot of Brahmins are coming and embracing it. And that's the message you get here, not necessarily antagonistic, but kind of adapting and adopting and changing, also valorizing. Like even I have to check on this, the next important disciple, Mahakassapa, I think he is a Brahmin. I think he is a Brahmin rather than a royal Shastriya. But he is the one who became the successor almost. So the Brahmin, and the Venerable Buddha Ghosa, who wrote the Pali commentaries, he's a Brahmin from South India.
Buddha's first 5 disciples were also Brahmins, right? They rejected him and then he came back.
Yeah, I think so.
And throughout history, like the most famous Buddhist philosophers,
Yeah.
came back, they all converted Brahmins.
Yeah. So it's very fascinating. I think not many people enough studied this. But I think as characters in the stories, I think the process is working, they valorize and they give authority to Buddha's teaching, because Brahmins are his audience. Brahmins are the ones who accept his Buddha's words. So here, coming to a royal or Shastriya, and they becoming disciples, I think there's that also going on. I think something to explore. There's another question. Yeah, please.
Bhante, good afternoon. Good morning. Before my topic, talking about the Brahmin.
Yeah.
The Brahmin was so good that they absorbed the philosophy of Buddha. That's the reason why Buddhism died in India and Hinduism prospered. That's what I think. Okay. Yeah. Now, thank you, Bhante, for your 3 talks series on socials and political. It's an eye-opener because you gave us another aspect of Buddhism as layman, as Putujana. So I have 2 questions. How do you reconcile? You see, in layman Buddhism, we have always thought that you live in the present, the past is gone, the future is not relevant. So for you, your talk is planned for the future. So how do you reconcile? This is one question.
Sure.
The next question...
May I answer that one first?
I think this is also related. So the other one is the emphasis on all our sermon, Buddhist talk, Dhamma classes, and all these sort of things. So why there is no emphasis on this sort of topics, which is very relevant to the present world, which is very relevant to all our lay people. Because all the time we are teaching the doctrine, which is, suffering, that kind of thing. Whereas this aspect, which is very important, is not taught to laymen in sermon, in Dhamma classes, in whatever. Thank you, Bhante.
Thank you for that observation. I know we have time is running out. Mr. Leslie check in, but we'll take about 5 minutes or so. Is that okay? Yeah. So this the observation, the second one, I think a lot of people do not know that these texts exist. Yeah, that's one of the reasons. I think now after giving the talk, I realize it's more than before. Earlier, I didn't have a topic, so I picked it up. But now, after coming here and talking to you, I realize the importance more. I myself, very, very important. And maybe we can work on it. And your first question is about the future. It's very important, living in the present, not attached to the past, not attached to the future. Now here the important one is clinging, not clinging. Past is important, present is important, future is important, but the important thing is that you are not clinging into it. It doesn't mean that you do not learn from the past. Learning from the past is important, and learning in the present is also important, but also on the basis of that, thinking about future is also important, but important thing is you should not attach to the product of it, the results. So that's what he says. It doesn't mean, imagine, Buddha himself, as a ascetic Sumedha, met Dipankara Buddha. Yeah? Many times ago, the first Buddha. And at that occasion, he had a wish. I want to become a Buddha. And that idea was born now. That wish of becoming Buddha is future. Suppose that he didn't have that wish, how he could become a Buddha? You see the difference? Your intention to do something is very important, and it applies to the future. So your intention to become a Buddha in future is very important, so that in the present you carve out a path for that. You work hard for it. But you may not be sure whether you will get it or not, so you are not nostalgic to the result. What is important is that doing the right thing in the middle. So that's what he says. So pachupannena yapeti, you dwell in the present moment, not attached to consequences of the past, the possible results of the future too. But you learn from the past, you try to be on the middle path now, and then you work hard now, preparing for what you attain in the future. See, does it make any sense? So, attachment is the bad thing, but planning is good. So, vayama, samma vayama, in the middle path. Samma vayama, one of the 8 components, yeah? The right effort. So the planning is right effort. So if we don't have that right effort, we become useless. Because that's where the problem lies in the society. Because as you say that if the people don't want to have work hard, we are finished. We have a lot of parasites around us, yeah? So these the kind of, so they're not attached to the result. That's what it. But working hard is important to make future. Think about, you don't want to be reborn in the hell in the future. Yeah? So you have to work it now, no? So see, so the future is important, but you should not be attached to it. I think I made it clear to you. Okay, so I will go to the conclusion very quickly. I know Mr. Leslie is getting, a little bit anxious that, it will go on for another hour. So let me conclude. So we have examined here in these 3 lectures, philosophical and ethical insights that underline the analysis of social problems. Basically, caste and poverty, and also economic crisis. So those are the 3 issues that we have looked at. In all 3 discourses, consider some ways poverty as a key problem. It's a mundane existence suffering, and it's an important ingredient of social unrest. And that materiality of that need to be addressed. And this materiality is also important for us. And Cakkavatiyan Siyanada Sutta, the topic of the 2nd week in particular, has clearly identified a causal link. It may not be one-to-one, but nevertheless there is a link between poverty, increase of poverty, and then subsequent lawlessness in society. And this is the current crisis all around the world. This is where we are living now, kind of also social problems and the decadence of morals, yeah? And that's where we are. So poverty is not seen as a karmic consequence. It's not a matter of fate, and it is also not a determinism. And it's a matter of lack of opportunities and lack of guidance and lack of basically being in the wrong time, in the wrong place. most of the time. Yeah, I'm lucky I'm here talking today because of auspicious connections. In auspicious connections, all the connections which came on my way to help. Even this lecture series, for example, is auspicious connection for me to move forward. Yeah, so we have to look at it in that way. So the poverty and other things is very much related to the locality and the conditions and the absence of auspicious connections. Yeah, so so it's not necessarily karma 100%. So these discourses do not condone existential poverty as karmic, as results of the previous bad deeds, so that you are paying your retribution for negative action. It doesn't say so. Yeah? And reasons for poverty are embedded in the inefficient and unjust economic structures and bad governance. And that's kind of what we can conclude. So here, inefficiency and injustice in the economic order is a problem. So Buddha had a clear message for rulers without any mystification and falsification. And Buddha understood only viable thing, only reasonable thing to do, only just thing to do is have a more equitable distribution of wealth, capital, and other resources. So that's the way to address the crime. And so the crime is a sickness and it affects the morality in society. So the states or the rulers must intervene when required to regulate the economy for a fairer distribution of wealth, but ensuring social stability and well-being of the multitude, many, not only for the few. Buddha shows that any economic planning must prioritize people's volition, people who want to work. They are very important. People who work hard should be the target, and their dedication must be rewarded, and they should be empowered to make a fair living justly and religiously and spiritually, and to enhance the morality. And so we conclude. We thought a lot of things, and may all of these wishes help us to succeed in our life. So to achieve our ambitions and empower us to achieve it. With that thought, we will recite it together. Imina punya kammena mami bala samagamu sata. Sampatti siddhya sadhu sa. So we wish that this would not have been possible without the tireless and lot of hours of working of Sasana Vivardhana Society, in particular Mr. Leslie Jayawardena, and also other people like Suranga and other team members here. And we wish, we wanted to thank them for their hard work. We wish them that they can do these things much more efficiently, much more successfully, and they have ability and all the resources and empowerment to reach out more, to reach to the young people in particular, if it's possible, and have success and all the blessings to the Sasana Vivardhana Society.